Hello, everyone. Hello, hello. Happy Clue Thursday. All right, let me make sure that we are recording. Good morning or afternoon, depending on where y'all are joining from. All right, 10 o'clock on the dot. Let's get into it. Welcome to Clue Thursday. My name is Madeline Sherry. Today I'm going to be joined by Alex Henninger and Sawyer Kirchmeyer, two members of our amazing go-to-market team. Super glad to have you guys here. Today's topic is the asset directory. So setup, adding assets, all the ways you can work with them in Clue. So quick question to sit with before we get into it. If I were to ask you how many machines you own, where each one is, what's due for service, could you answer it in under a minute? The goal is by the end of today, we'll show you exactly how to do that. So this is a live demo, not a slideshow. You're seeing the real product. We'll save time for Q&A at the end, so please drop any questions, any and every question you have in the Q&A. We will make sure we have time for those. And without further ado, Alex, let's get into it.
Awesome. Thank you, Madeline. And do you have the agenda that we can pull up real quick?
Absolutely, I do.
Cool. As Madeline mentioned, I'm Alex. I'm a sales engineer here at Clue. My co-host is Sawyer. He's a business development manager here or representative here. Um, we are really here to talk to you today from a knowledge standpoint of having worked with construction folks, with heavy civil teams every single day. So we understand how your operations run, and we built Clue to fit that, not the other way around. So this isn't going to be just a feature tour. You already know what the asset directory is. You know what those buttons do for the most part. So today is really about making you a power user. So learning the tips, the moves, all of those good things that get you the most out of Clue with less effort so that you're spending less time chasing data and more on work that matters. So some of the things that we're going to be covering today, we're going to split this into two sections. So the first half is going to be the asset directory itself. So how to work your whole fleet fast from finding and filtering, customizing your view, moving assets. And then the second half is going to be opening up an asset, looking at that machine, understanding all the different components of it, what those things do. And like Madeline said, we're working in our real environment today. So you're going to be seeing real data. This should look very familiar for you folks who are already in Clue, so that we're showing you exactly where you can click to optimize your own fleet. So, moving on to the through line of what we want you to be thinking about as we're going through this today. So, one idea ties everything together today, which is the foundation of Clue is really your asset directory. So, things like your GPS, your work orders, PM schedules, reports, all of this is reading from this list. So, getting it right means that you're getting more accurate data down the line pretty much for free. So, letting yourself spend some extra time making sure that this looks exactly the way that you want is going to pay off so much more down the line. And I'm not going to sell you on why that foundation matters. Because you already get it. So the good news is that doing this is not going to, take a whole bunch of work. It's really just a handful of small habits that showing you today will hopefully allow you to work smarter, not harder, and make sure that this is set up the way that you want. Let's get into that. This is just a little bit of what we're going to do. We already talked about this, so I'll take over screen share and we'll hop right in to our environment. Madeline Sawyer, can we see the screen
Yeah.
okay? Thumbs up. All right. Awesome. So, how did we get onto this screen? Just really quick, directionally, over here in this left panel, I'm over here under organization. I clicked into assets, and this is home base. So every asset that you own or rent, one row each on a single screen, and it's really easy to kind of fly past this screen as something like very basic. But as I was saying, this one list is what everything else in Clue reads off of. So it's super important for us to spend some extra time understanding what this actually means. Now, the real power of this screen are the columns that we see here, because this really turns it into a live status board that you can read without having to open up anything yet. Now, there's a lot of power when we actually do click into this and open up some other things, which is what we're going to get into. But even plainly looking at these columns, we can see a lot. So, before your Monday safety meeting or before a PM meeting, just scanning this list, maybe scanning inspection issues to see if there's anything going on, you can instantly know which assets have something flagged. No reports to turn on, no calls to make. You can see a lot of things at a glance. So, here are a couple of things that I would do first from an optimization standpoint. I would be thinking about this in terms of role. So, typically, you're going to have, different people in your organization using Clue in different ways, and you're going to want to see different things depending on the work that you do here. So, you don't need every single column, you just need the ones that are important for you. So maybe if you're working in maintenance, you might care about work orders or hours or inspection issues. Dispatch might care about location or status. The columns that you choose are the difference between really glancing and hunting. So in this first stretch, I'm not going to be opening anything. I just want to show you how to make this list do the work for you. So one of the first things that I'm going to show you is how we can actually pin some things and move some columns around so that you're getting the view that you want. So you'll notice over here that I can actually click this and drag it. So this is the first kind of quick tip, super simple, but this is something that a lot of people miss and don't understand that you can do very easily, which is just the simple drag and drop over here. You can move one thing from one place to another. Now, the other thing that I'll show you is how to actually customize these columns here. So you'll notice these little icons up here in the top right. When I click into this, you're going to see a whole bunch of table settings. You'll also notice that we have these green toggles, which means that these are active, these are already turned on. But I can go through here, grab and move these so that they're in a different area on our list. I can also pin them to make sure that every time I'm logging in, that is staying exactly where I want it. So that's one option that you can do to optimize what you're looking at here. The second thing is our smart search. So if you see over here in our search box, most people think that you have to type in the unit number and then stop there, but this box actually searches the make, the model, the serial, the VIN, not just the name that you give it. So the value is actually really simple here. Anyone can pull up any asset with whatever detail that they happen to have on hand. So if nobody has the name scheme that you have named something, you can actually put in like the model. So for example, if I type in something like Peter, you can see that we're pulling up all of the Peterbilt makes here. And we didn't have to put in the asset name at all. And one other tip is that this is also your duplicate detector. So let's say that you're searching like a serial number. If two rows come up, that's an indication to you that maybe that same asset has been entered twice. And that means that its history is being split across two assets that don't need to be in there. So just another tip to kind of think about there. You'll have an
And
option to merge those if in case that does happen.
yeah, and then Alex, I see the filter right next to the search bar, and this one thing that I kind of want to understand a little bit more is when starting, say, like a new project, I really would a lot of people would want to know, what assets are currently available, say if they need to find some rental from one of the big rental houses in the area for the project. Can you show them how to be able to search that and filter that without having to say like actually export a huge Excel file sheet with all the equipment that's available?
Yes. Thank you for pointing this out because this is where the idea of our clean list is really starting to pay off here. So you'll notice what I did here is I just opened the filters on the left. It opens up this really thorough panel here. And so your question is really the correct one because, before you're spending a certain dollar amount renting, it's really important to know what you already have, right? So you have a bunch of different filters here that you can use to really break down what you already have, what it is that you're looking for. So let's go through some of them just so you have an idea of what you can use. At a glance, you have all of these different categories broken down from project to product class. You have different tags that you can also add on to assets and look through those custom views. But if I were to just go down and click on rented, that's going to bring up specific details about what I already have. And the great thing about this is that any filter that you select on here is going to stick the next time that you log in. So you're not having to come in here and reset your filters every single time. The other quick tip is that if you are needing to look for something different, remembering to come up here and click on clear filter is going to be that kind of magic button. If all of a sudden you're like, wait a minute, I'm actually not seeing what I'm expecting to see here, and I know that I have these things, go ahead and remember to click on clear filter if you're starting out a new search. The other quick tip here is that whatever you filter for, you can also export. So the filter can also turn into a report. So if you notice, this little button over here, you can download that view that you're looking at. So instead of building a report from scratch in the reporting tab or something like that, you can just use this again to be that source of truth for the information that you're looking for. Okay. So we already looked at column views a little bit. I already talked about how to pin those. So we're going to skip over that section and actually go into bulk moves a little bit here. So,
Yeah, and then
um,
real quick, Alex,
yeah,
before you get into that, just based off some of my past experience at my last job, when we were selling off a lot of older equipment at the rental company I worked at, and it was always just a nightmare to not only move the or dispatch the equipment to the rental house, but also clean up the system afterwards.
yeah.
So, is there a way you could show everybody how Clue handles retiring equipment to keep all the records clean? Because this is, the base of everything on Clue, the asset directory.
Yes. So really, really good call out, Sawyer, because this is one of those things that doing something in bulk can save a lot of time, but you also want to be thinking about how to do this in a smart way so that you're keeping all of the history if you are offloading a certain amount of assets. So let's talk about how to do things in bulk really quickly, and then also a tip to make sure that you're keeping all of that information. So you'll notice that I have these little check boxes that are next to the assets. If I click on one of these and then also go to my keyboard and hold down the shift button, and then let's say I want to do, this group here, and I click down onto this BU 113, you'll notice that it highlighted all of those. So again, really simple mechanism here, but this grabbed that whole range. Now, whatever you're hitting is going to select all of those at once. And then you have a couple of options if you notice down at the bottom. So we have 15 assets selected. We can assign them to a project or we can deactivate those assets. Now, this is what Sawyer was talking about. If we were to, go to an auction, offload a bunch of things, if we want to retire something, the key here is to deactivate rather than delete. So deactivating means that it's dropping it off of your active list, but it's keeping all of that information. So the things like the hours, the history, the documents. So when finance or an auditor comes and asks about something that you sold 2 years ago, you can still pull up that record. So deleting it throws it away for good. So we never delete an asset. Deleting history is how you end up in a very uncomfortable meeting with your accountant, and nobody wants to be the reason that that meeting got scheduled. So that's our first part of asset directory. So what we have looked at here is how to find things really easily through the search bar. We have how to slice and dice our columns to get the views that we want, and also how to move your whole fleet around fast. Also looking at those filters, a bunch of different combinations to give you a view that you want that you can export. So that alone is most of the kind of day-to-day work that you're going to have in your asset directory. But our next section, I would love to go into opening an asset and talking about what we can find on that asset. So, what is a part of that machine? What's important for us to have on there? And how do we use this to our advantage to save time? So, I'm going to go over here and you'll notice that we have the Add Asset button. Now I'm going to click on this and you'll notice that it opens up a panel where we have a couple of different options here.
Real quick, Alex, I just want to
Yeah.
interject because I have a lot of conversations with customers and people every day, and one of the biggest concerns, at least I run into on the business development side, is a lot of the manual work that people have to do when transitioning into Clue, or like that
Hmm.
initial data entry of a lot of their existing equipment, or even adding new equipment that they just purchased on auction or they just purchased from a dealer. It's just a
Yeah.
lot of manual stuff going on that they have to put in when adding an asset that I feel like could be fixed really easily.
Yes. I hear that a lot too. And so something that Clue has done is tried to make this as easy as possible for you. So this is a really good place for us to actually start here, which is how do we get this asset onto the list? As easy as possible. So most of yours are going to show up on their own. So from like your ERP like Vista or your telematics like Samsara or Vision Link. So we meet you where you are. Like there's no rekeying your whole fleet in here. If those live over there, they're going to move into Clue as well. But if, like Sawyer is saying, maybe you purchase something offhand, you need to add that in manually. Instead of typing everything in, like the make, the model, the year, all of that, a trick that you can use to make this a lot easier is actually just finding that serial number or that VIN. If I type this in here, you'll notice that I type it there. I hit look up VIN. And you'll notice a couple of things happened really quickly. If you missed it, I'm not surprised because it happened really, really fast. But what it did is it actually added the make, the model, the asset type, the fuel type, the manufacturer year, all from me just inserting that VIN or serial number. So instead of typing all of that in, Clue will fill that in for you. One number and the rest is done. So, that whole batch of new trucks that you just onboarded can be in here really in minutes instead of, taking an entire afternoon because, nobody in the entire history of construction has ever woken up and thought to themselves, I'm really excited to enter in 17 character VINs all day, along with the rest of the information. So, this is where this same form can really, save you a ton of time. And so let's actually look at a couple of other things on here as well, including the properties.
Yeah, actually,
So,
hold on.
yeah,
Could you go back real quick, Alex?
sure.
So, something I want you to kind of really point out is the attachments. So, like I said
Yeah.
before, coming from the rental industry, there was so many times where our inventory was so off on our buckets and our breakers and our hammers to where we didn't know exactly what to rent, or we couldn't fill an order of a customer that was coming through, or even we lost it really in the contract space. So, it was a bucket on some contract that we left on rent, and we don't know where it is, and now we need it. So, is there a way you can kind of go a little bit more into depth on showing how we attract the attachments? I feel like that's really tedious, but really important in the heavy civil industry.
Totally. So, um, when we're talking about attachments, it can actually mean a couple of different things depending on where we are in the add a new asset. So on this screen in particular, where we have notes and then we have attachments. Attachments are going to be things like a document, like maybe like a warranty or something that's attached there. There are actually some other areas where we can add that, but like a picture of it. So when we're thinking about attachments on the asset details, that's what we're looking at there. But if we're thinking about something like a bucket, like something that needs to be connected to that asset no matter where it moves, we're going to go over here into assignments and you'll see link attachments here. And this is where we already have a bunch of different things in here named to, the way that you call it. So maybe it's a compactor plate. We click that, hit apply, and then if I were to hit save, this attachment would stay with this asset everywhere that it goes. So, no matter where it moves from project to project, it's going to be attached to this asset unless you're coming in here and manually moving that. So, really good question. The one other thing, just before we move on from this, going back to properties, you'll notice a couple of different options on here from engine to tires to hauling to licensing. This is where you can really make this form yours. This property tab is where you can add in custom fields. So, whatever your company tracks from those cost codes to, a plate or a department, set it up once and they'll land on every asset. Um, so this is just another way to make it yours. And we won't go into all of these today because we're just focusing on, how to save you time and where you can find the most value. But those are some of the things that people miss the most when we're on the adding an asset that you can save a lot of time doing. So let's actually hop over and open up a record and look at a couple of different options in there. So I'm going to be opening up this one here, and I have a couple of things turned on, which is why it's not pulling up. We've got some spaces involved. And so you're seeing in real time how to troubleshoot this, guys. So this is really good. You'll notice that where I copied it from actually input different spaces in between these letters and numbers. And so that's going to bring up an error for you. So tip in real time, make sure wherever you're copying from is the right format. So this opens up the screen right over here on this side panel, and we're going to see a couple of things right away. Everything about this is in one place from top to bottom, status, hours, odometer. We also have this little link here that shows that we have a linked operator attached to this asset. So we were talking about, linked buckets, linked attachments. You can also link people to a specific asset. So this little button shows you at a glance who's linked to that. And then this three-dot menu up here is also going to show you a bunch of quick actions as well. So you'll see a bunch of buttons here from viewing the asset altogether. You can edit it, assign it to a project. And the reason I mention this is because it is a small little icon. It can be really easy to move past that, not click into it, and just be working out of this panel alone. And there's actually a lot more that you can do in here that you might not realize, from requesting repair directly from this panel to viewing an inspection history. So just keep in mind there's a lot that you can do just from clicking on those three little dots. And let's look at a couple of other things under performance. So just right here, we can see things from operating hours to fuel consumption. We can see any alerts that are coming up. So all of this is really easily editable too from this calendar menu. So again, if you're looking to see performance on a specific date, you can click on that calendar directly from this panel and change your view right away. And the other thing that I want to mention as a tip is something that a lot of people miss. An asset that isn't connected isn't necessarily stuck. So if for some reason you're noticing that something isn't updating here, you can always come into here and edit things manually if you need to. So you can hand key those in, and this is going to stay the same even after it's updating in the evening. So anything that you put in here, we're not going to overwrite that data. So that's just one thing to keep in mind.
Hey, Alex, while
Yeah.
we're here, question in the chat. In this view that we're in, is there a way for us to drill down into the make and model of the machine or vehicle, or is that a different view?
Yeah, so there are a couple different ways that we can look at that. The one is just going back into the edit where you can see a bunch of different things there, but we can also scroll down on here or click into this asset itself. So this is the asset snapshot. We can go into, view asset and see more information on this screen. So we can see that make right there. We can see the asset type. If we scroll down, we can see some of those custom fields. So a lot of those same things that we were seeing when we were adding an asset, we can see just by clicking on the view asset there. So keep in mind that asset snapshot is just that quick view. If you want to drill down, going into view asset is going to give you that wider picture.
Awesome, thank you.
Cool. Okay. So, yeah, Sawyer.
Yeah, I was just so curious. Like at my last position that I was at here was probably seemed very valuable to know a lot of times the location history, but also their work order history when I'm sending out, say, a field technician out to the field to repair a piece of equipment on rent. So there was really, for me, it was very, very hard for our service manager and for myself to find really that paper trail, not so much paper trail, but a trail of who worked on that piece of machine last, who was, where was at the location that it was at, what job it was on, so we could really help really better diagnose really what went wrong with that machine when it was like a really big major breakdown.
Yeah, no, super good point. And that's exactly why we built this panel the way that we did and the view interface that we did so that we can put all of that really useful information in one place at a glance. So you'll notice that I scrolled down on this panel to the bottom, and now I can see a couple of different things. So I can see our work orders that are attached to this asset. So every service that this machine has had, what's open right now, if there are any, live fault alerts that are sitting, they're going to sit right above here in the alerts that we can click into, and really see what's going on there. We can see what happened when, essentially, just at a glance in this panel. The other thing that we can see is that location history down at the bottom. So we can change the dates that we saw at the top over here and see, oh, actually, right here is a better place to do that. So, where something was when we can click on that date range and get an idea of the full travel history of that asset. So something like that is going to be really useful. Like you said, if something goes wrong, if an asset walks off the job site somewhere, you have a way to, not guess what happened to it. You have a way to look it up immediately and figure out, what went where when. So that's the difference really between recovering something and having to, eat the loss. So this is really what we have in, this full panel here. And the last thing that I'll say before we kind of move on to what I would love for you guys to take from this conversation is that, again, this asset list is really your source of truth. It's the foundation that everything else is built off of. And the payoff is, really having that accurate data going forward in your reports. So it really goes beyond just having, a tidy asset list. Every piece of it from your statuses to your hours, your utilization, your assignments, that all feeds into your reports and how you're making better decisions with that data that you have. So this is the perfect place to kind of bring it back home to our little slideshow there, Madeline. So I will give the share back over to you.
Thank you, thank you. Loved that. Amazing. Can y'all see this okay?
Yep.
Great.
Looks like we got it. So really quickly here, and then we're going to move into some Q&A. If you take three things away from today, I really want you to think about these. So again, your list is the foundation. So, the moves that keep it right are really small. So things like your VIN lookup, a clean filtering system, being able to bulk retire things instead of delete. When the list is right, everything else is going to get better, be cleaner. And that's really the whole trick is making sure that this is clean so everything else works better. So, I really hope that you take some of these tips away and really work it like a power user. So that's why we're, talking today is so we can share some of these really simple things with you that can be overlooked. And that one record, if we're putting all of that information in there, if you're customizing it the way that makes the most sense for your business, that record is going to hold all of that information that's going to be really necessary for you to have all of that data that you need to, be really dangerous in the job that you're doing. So, would love to move into any questions that y'all have.
Yeah, we have one. Can we got a question in the chat. Can you show us again how we link attachments like a bucket to an excavator? Can you
Yeah,
give us another little sneak peek at that? I'll stop sharing again.
absolutely. Let me hop over.
Yeah, and if you could almost like go through like a real example of you actually adding something to an asset and actually adding a bucket or a breaker or a plate.
Yeah, for sure. We can look at that again. Okay, can you see my screen all right?
Yep.
Okay. So let me get back to kind of our master asset list here, and I'll just choose this first one. I'm going to go over into these three little dots. I'm going to go into edit asset, and I'm going to go into assignments here. And you'll see down here in edit assignments, link attachments. This is an easy way for you to link something, that is related to your asset. Something I didn't show you though is this way to actually filter through what some of these attachments are. So if you click on filter over here, you'll notice that it brings up a bunch of different things that we can click into. So I clicked into landfill compactor, and then it brings up, these attachments that I can grab. So I hit apply, and then I can hit save. And ideally, if this were, a real piece of data that I had set up, that would be attached to it, and we would find it over here attached. So you'll notice that little attachment, we can see exactly what those attachments are on that asset. And I can click into that and see what this one actually is, as long as it loads cleanly.
Now, on that, Alex, are we able to add more than one attachment to each unit, like bucket and forks on wheel loader? Is one of the questions that popped
Yeah.
up.
Yeah. As far as I'm aware, we can add attachments that go with it, as much as you need.
Great.
So, usually you're not going to find just one attachment with something. So you can absolutely add more.
Okay. And then another one that came up, good question. Can we attach an attachment and a person?
Yes.
Nice.
Yeah. So we saw that on one of the other ones that we were looking at, but let's go back to edit asset, go into assignments again. And, maybe there's someone that is consistently working on one machine and you want to make sure that that is the machine that follows them from project to project. In addition to linking the actual like part here, we can link a person. So you'll notice that when I pull this up, this person, this superintendent, we can see at a glance is already attached to four different assets.
Mm.
So we can already see like, this person has this amount underneath them. And that's also, key information too, if you have some kind of limit of how many machines you want attached to a single person or something like that, you can make sure that you're looking through that really cleanly.
Yeah. And
Awesome.
then I have another good question here in the chat here. Say the dispatching side, if we did dispatch, say, an excavator with a thumb and a bucket on it over to another job, those attachments are then going to be attached to that machine permanently and move
Yeah,
along with the dispatch.
absolutely.
Okay.
Everything is going to stay with that asset unless you're going in there and manually removing it. So nothing should, fly off randomly unless you're going in there and removing it yourself.
Yeah. And another one for me here, going back to really beginning about retiring, you said you were bulk retiring. Could you show possibly in the snapshot view how we could change the machine to operating, to down, to available, to retire? Say if you weren't doing a bulk retire and you weren't sending a bunch of machines to an auction house, you could just do one at a time.
Yeah, so if we go up here into these three little dots, there's a couple of different things that you could do. So the first one here, we can see that it is operational here. We can see those linked attachments, just showing you, a couple of different things just from the last question. But you'll also notice this deactivate button. So you can move this to deactivate directly from this panel if needed. So it's not something that you have to do in a bulk view. You can do it directly from this panel as well. Um, so that's one way that, if you have a bunch of work orders attached to this, inspections, errors coming up, you need to temporarily deactivate this, make it not available as active for being selected for a project. You can easily do that from here.
Perfect. Right.
Cool. Any other questions? We're getting anywhere? Anything interesting that stood out to anybody?
Yeah, I think I see one more coming through. So if we're looking, like if we need to filter by time, how can I see where one of my assets was a month ago, 2 weeks ago,
Yeah.
3 months ago?
Yeah. Let's look at that again here, because we went through it pretty
Yeah,
quickly.
yeah.
Um, Well, actually, this is actually a good one. It had some location on it. So there are a couple of different places that we see a calendar or a date come up. The first one is up here under performance. So keep that in mind. We're seeing calendars in a couple of different places. So we can change what we're seeing in performance by clicking on that calendar. But if we scroll all the way down to location, you'll notice this location history section. So again, I know we went through this quickly, but clicking on this will allow you to choose a specific date range that will show you where your asset was during that specific time period. So I hit apply there, and you'll notice that now it's loading a much more detailed view of what that location history first saw. So just choosing that is going to give you, where in your geofence that you have set up, where that asset was. So if you need to track like what happened to this machine when, who was operating it then, what job site was it at, the key is remembering to hit that apply and not just selecting this, which I don't think we did last time, so that it shows you that more holistic view of where that asset is.
And it looks like we got another question come in here. I have requested a status option of out on rent if I am renting my machine to another company. Do you think that will be able to happen?
I think if Odette or Josh are on here listening, that's gonna be a great question for them.
And
Uh,
just to call out for because I saw a question come through about the location view, we're in some test data here, so we don't actually have an asset assigned out to a specific place. So if you actually, were to have a real asset out here, this is when you would see that on the map. So just for clarity there, you will see a map here with your real assets. Can you say that question one more time, Madeline? It was something about rentals.
yeah. So definitely a question for adding another status option. But maybe on the top on the top right, you can show us again one more time how to show equipment status.
Yeah. Let's see here.
So
Sections,
should
availability status history. So this is going to show you actually something that I find very interesting. Um, let's go back actually, which was the status history. So let's exit out of that. And Um, so you'll notice that we have another calendar option here, which shows you like when a machine was operational versus like when it was deactivated. So this is another aspect of status where you can see, from this date to this date, was this working? There's a work order that's attached to this. And so on and so forth. So this is also something that we didn't get to that can be super helpful from
Yeah.
a wider view.
And then also, Alex, at up there in the operational, right next to the, yeah, you can click that. It's another
Yeah,
quick way to access everything on it's down, it's available on site, retired, operational. It can give you all
exactly.
the quick statuses that just quickly.
Yeah, if you need to change it right away, that's the best way to do it as well.
Yeah, and we can customize those. Oh, look. Hey, Oded.
Hi. I think there was a question as well. Alex, if you click on the top right corner where it says operational, I think that was the question from someone in the audience.
hmm
Yes, these options can be customized. So the default, if, for example, you are retiring an asset, you can mark it as retired. But if you have different statuses, for example, you're renting things between your divisions, these options can be manually tweaked for specific organizations. That's an advanced option.
And it looks like we have another question in the
Oh,
chat. If Josh is on the meeting, has he ever been asked to professionally model by anyone? I think that's be something you would have to ask Josh personally.
what
I
an
don't think
amazing
anyone on
question.
here would know this one, but good question though. Good question. Yes, he does get the hair for it.
Amazing question. Awesome. Well, anything else popping up before we close out? Last call, and obviously you guys know we're gonna get to send this recording, and we'll all be available for any follow-up questions as well.
Here's one question that comes directly. If you click, can you show Alexandra how to quickly just check utilization for last week?
Yeah, so if we go into utilization, this is going to bring up a quick panel here where, again, we have the ability to, maybe go back to a certain date. We can scroll through and see some of these other columns here just at a glance. We also have some table settings here that we can change. So another mini way to kind of filter a more granular view of utilization really at your hand. So this column here, super powerful. You can see a lot really with just a couple of clicks in these three little dots up here. Awesome. Any other questions?
Well, this has been amazing. Thank you, Alex. Thank you, Sawyer. Thank you, everyone who joined to sit with us, and really hoping that y'all learned a little bit, or at least enjoyed hanging out with us. So next Thursday, next Clue Thursday, we're going to be focusing on and diving into the templates manager. So super, super excited to continue bringing y'all content, and great tips and tricks to get the most out of Clue. But again, any follow-up questions, anything that pops up, Sawyer, Alex, Oded, myself, Josh, we're here for you. And like I said, we'll be following up with the recording for you to reference back on or share with the team if y'all need. But thank you guys so, so much. Have a wonderful, wonderful rest of your Thursday, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye, y'all.